dolls. Why did it have to be dolls? The only thing that scares me more than creepy ass kids in horror movies are creepy ass dolls. Something about dolls moving around on their own just really scares the fuck out of me. And on this episode of Nerd Space Horror, I'll be taking a look at the scariest dolls in horror movies. Lucky me. Surprisingly, there's actually a lot of horror movies out there that focus on creepy or possessed dolls. It's kind of a major thing in Hollywood right now, probably thanks to big films like Megan and Annabelle being so successful right now. But with so many movies out there with creepy dolls in them, the question then becomes, which one is the scariest of them all? Well, on today's episode, I'll be answering that question as I give you guys the 10 dolls that creep me out the most. Before we get started though, don't forget to subscribe for more horror content and hit that like button if you enjoyed today's topic. Also, in terms of this list specifically, I will only be including one doll per franchise. Oh, and I'll be using the term doll loosely, as there will be entries on today's list that may qualify as other things like puppets or toys. Anyway, my name is Ruben with Nerd Space Horror, and this is my top 10 scariest dolls in horror movies. Number 10, Megan. Honestly, most people probably wouldn't find Megan to be that scary, mainly due to the target audience of this film. Thanks to the marketing of the movie, TikTok kind of took over, and Blumhouse immediately saw a younger audience interested in this movie. Because of that, a lot of the kills and gory scenes were toned down a lot to get that PG-13 rating. Still, Megan does have a few moments that make her creepy enough to earn a spot at the bottom of today's list. One of my favorite scenes in the movie was when she attacked the boy in the woods after seeing him bully Caddy. This scene is actually pretty horrifying as Megan chases him on all fours through the woods before causing him to get hit by a car. Her access to all sorts of technology also increased the fear factor, as she came off as more dangerous than most dolls in horror movies thanks to her being an intelligent AI essentially. Overall though, I couldn't move her higher on today's list due to some of the moments that felt more comedic for a horror movie. Number 9, Billy, Dead Silence. Dead Silence was a big disappointment for me when I first saw the film. The concept of the movie that focuses on people dying if they scream was something that fit perfectly for a horror movie. Unfortunately, it was nowhere near as good as it sounded. Still, there were a few shiny moments in this movie that are worth mentioning, like Billy the Puppet. While not the scariest doll named Billy that we've seen in a horror movie, as you'll see later on with today's list, he is in fact the scariest part of this film. As Mary Shaw's favorite puppet, Billy was used multiple times throughout the film to increase the level of fear with Mary's victims. With a few jump scares here and there, and the creepy yet subtle movements of Billy that remind me of Annabelle from the Conjuring universe, Billy the doll was terrifying each time he was on screen. Also, is it just me, or does this doll kind of remind you of a slightly more terrifying version of Slappy from Goosebumps? Number 8, Blade, Puppet Master. The Puppet Master franchise follows a handful of possessed puppets that are usually controlled by a dangerous person that uses a spell that allows them to control puppets and murder people. To be honest, there's actually a ton of puppets that are controlled by the Puppet Master, so just to pick one is an extremely difficult task. However, there's one that I feel like is slightly above every other puppet on the creepy factor, and that is the most iconic one, of course, Blade. As his name suggests, Blade has a knife blade in place of one of his hands. He's able to move quicker than most of the puppets, and he's easily one of the more brutal puppets as well. On top of that, the ghoulish face that he has is also pretty creepy, and with all of these elements combined, Blade earns himself a spot on today's list. Number 7, Der Clown, Krampus. Krampus is a Christmas horror comedy that follows a family as they are attacked by Krampus, basically the evil Santa Claus. Because of the family pretty much losing all of their Christmas spirit, Krampus arrives to punish them. What follows is a string of horrifying yet hilarious murders caused by the infamous Krampus, his elves, and even his toys. Actually, it's the latter that we are focusing on, as one of his toys is just outright terrifying. Enter the Clown. The Clown is basically a massive jack-in-the-box that can swallow little kids whole, and that's exactly what he kind of does in the movie. All of the toys in this movie are terrifying in their own right, but their Clown is without a doubt the creepiest one in this movie. Number 6, Brahms, the boy. Without revealing any spoilers for the ending of the film, but let's just say that Brahms, the creepy doll, and the boy is a lot more than he seems. Greta is hired by an old couple to babysit their son, Brahms, while they are away on business. However, after arriving at the house for her job, she finds out that the boy that she is babysitting is in fact a doll. Well, that's pretty creepy on its own. Before leaving, the couple leaves behind strict rules for Greta to follow when taking care of Brahms, and when she starts breaking these rules, odd things begin to happen. From Brahms being moved from place to place on his own to creepy things happening in the middle of the night, Greta slowly learns that Brahms is much more than just a creepy looking doll. Number 5. Billy, Saw. Billy in Dead Silence may have been creepy thanks to it being possessed by the spirit of Mary Shaw, but another doll named Billy exists in horror movies and it's much creepier despite it not being possessed by an evil spirit. That of course is the tricycle riding doll from the Saw franchise, Billy. This doll is different from most dolls on today's list as it's one of the only ones that isn't possessed, but instead it's just a normal lifeless doll that's used to deliver Jigsaw's messages to his victims. His creepy voice as he slowly rides into the victim's trap to deliver the rules of the game is something that has remained with each and every one of us ever since that first movie. Overall, Billy proved that you don't need a cursed background for a doll to fill you with dread. Even when you know it's not alive, it doesn't make it any less creepy. Number 4. The Clown Doll, Poltergeist. The Clown in Poltergeist is the scariest clown doll in all horror movies, despite it being a small part in a ghost story. Funny enough, a majority of the film features this doll as nothing more than that, just a regular old doll. Yet, something about the look of the doll itself just screams scary. Perhaps because it's a clown doll? However, it's not until later in the film that we get one of the scariest moments ever seen in a horror movie, the bed jump scare. This sequence with the clown doll and the bed is something that increased our fear of both clowns and dolls altogether. I honestly can't believe how terrifying this moment was despite it being a rather tame moment, but it's a moment that remained with us for years to come. For that reason, the Clown Doll in Poltergeist claims the number 4 spot on today's list. Number 3. Annabelle, Annabelle Creation. Annabelle is getting up there in terms of being one of the most iconic dolls in a horror movie. The only one that I can think that outshines her in terms of how iconic she is a certain good guy doll himself. Still, Annabelle is relatively tame compared to other possessed dolls in most of her movies. For the most part, we usually see creepy and scary situations caused by her presence. However, the height of horror when it comes to Annabelle is in the prequel Annabelle Creation. In my opinion, this is one of the scariest horror movies that focuses on a doll. Some of the scenes in Annabelle Creation literally keeps me up at night when I think about them, and all of those moments were created from the demon-possessed doll, Annabelle. Number 2. Heidi. Out of every movie discussed on today's list, I'm willing to bet that most of you watching this video recognize almost every single one of them. With that being said, I feel like a lot of people haven't seen Heidi, which is kind of a shame because it's one of the most unnerving and terrifying found footage horror movies that I've ever seen. I did a ranking video a little while back on found footage horror films, but I actually didn't know about Heidi at the time of making that list. If I had, I would have included Heidi on that list. The film follows two friends that find a creepy doll inside of an attic while they are watching a neighbor's bird. After finding this creepy doll, strange things begin to happen as people begin dying around them, and this doll keeps showing up no matter what they do to it. It's an extremely unnerving film, and I actually almost put it at the number 1 spot, but I couldn't push myself to put it above one other creepy doll in a horror movie, and I'm pretty sure you guys can guess who that is. Number 1. Chucky, Curse of Chucky. In most of the Child's Play movies, Chucky the Killer Doll wasn't actually that terrifying. In fact, he was mostly comedic in a similar way to Freddy Krueger in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. With that being said, there are a few entries of the series where Chucky is at his peak in terms of the scare factor. So while I think one of those moments is Child's Play 2, personally I find Curse of Chucky to be the scariest Chucky movie to date. This version of him is extremely terrifying as he's a little more methodical, savage, and thanks to the improvement of technology and budget, Chucky has never looked more terrifying than he does in Curse of Chucky. Something about Brad Dourif's voice combined with the good guy doll aesthetic is without a doubt the perfect combination for a very scary killer doll. Therefore, Chucky from Curse of Chucky in my mind claims the number 1 spot for the scariest doll in a horror movie.
I'm gonna get you.
But that's it for this episode of Nerd Space Horror. Hit up the comments and let me know what you think of my list. Is Chucky the scariest doll in a horror movie, or is there a different creepy doll that deserves that title? Let me know down below. Anyway, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more horror content. Also, don't forget to leave a like on today's video if you enjoyed today's topic. But thanks for watching, and as always, I'll catch you guys on the next episode of Nerd Space Horror. Take care.